I want to talk to you about Carl Jung. Carl Jung was a famous psychologist. He was a student of Sigmund Freud. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a nuclear physicist. But I am a big fan of Carl Jung. I'm also a recovered alcoholic. And I studied Carl Jung as a fan of his for many, many years. And one of the concepts that Carl Jung has is this concept of a shadow man. And Carl Jung's, I'll paraphrase it in Jim Spina language, that we all have a shadow person. And this is the person essentially that lives within our subconscious. Okay? He's a dark, shadowy figure. He's very much alive. Okay? And the shadow man is a very authentic being. Many times he represents a lot of our truest urges, motivations, desires. But for many different reasons, we repress our shadow man. We push him down deep into our subconscious because we don't want to operate at the conscious level with the shadow man. Because the shadow man has some of our deep, dark secrets. Like maybe we really like sex. Or maybe we really have a vice, or we're attracted to somebody, or whatever thing we can perceive in our mind as being worthy of condemnation and guilt. Those types of behaviors, which are all too human and varied, we repress. That's the shadow man. It's not me. It's not my conscious entity. And his theory goes on further, and forgive me for not only making this incredibly succinct and paraphrasing, but there's an important point that's made. And that is that we all reach a point in our lives. Usually it's the beginning of the last third of our life, wherever you want it, and that's not chronological. You know, you have that first third of youth and adolescence and young adulthood, and then that middle age period, and then there's the period that comes after that. And that's really where people get middle age crises. But we often have a crisis of identity, and that's what that crisis is all about. Who am I? Oftentimes people retire at this point in time. Then you really lose your identity because we start confusing ourselves with human doings rather than human beings. We are what we do. We start being human doings. And so when you lose your doing, who the hell are you? All kinds of things can converge and cause an identity crisis. And Carl Jung's theory was that that is the point in our lives where we have to reconcile ourselves to our shadow man. Okay, we have to bring him out of the shadows, introduce ourselves to him, welcome him, learn from him, understand what he can teach us about who we truly are. It's a very, very, very powerful concept. And I'm starting to reconcile my relationship with my shadow man. He was knocked out of my subconscious. I didn't invite him. You see, my alcoholism eventually killed me, and I bled to death. And after a spontaneous, extraordinary event, I came out of a coma. Alcoholism was lifted from me, but I was a stranger in the same world that I left. I was changed. The world hadn't changed, nor had the consequences of my actions changed. My identity changed. My consciousness changed. My awareness of who I was changed. And that's a tough period of time. It sounds like a blissful awakening, and I will tell you, having alcoholism lifted from me is the event that I am most grateful to my higher power for than anything that has ever happened to me. Every single morning that I wake up, not wanting a drink, not having an obsession, compulsion, a desire, or an urge. Yet when that's gone, I have to figure out how I'm going to operate at a new elevated level of consciousness in the same world that I exited when I entered that coma. Thanks for listening to me.